Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Maddrey, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer.
Joining us today is Toni Shiloh. Yay, thanks for coming back again, Toni.
Thanks for having me.
Today we are talking about CCR that features wedding planners. It's June, so that's like wedding season, at least here in the United States it is. I don't know if other people, probably not in Australia. Is June a thing in Australia?
Not like it is. It's probably September, October.
Okay.
It's probably more
spring, right?
Yeah. I got married in January, so that's probably the closest to being summer.
So we're doing wedding planners. What is it about a wedding planner that makes a good hero or heroine? Toni, what do you think?
First, when I hear that question, I was like, ooh, is there one where the hero's a wedding planner? Because if so, I'm so there. But I didn't think of any that feature the hero. But I like the fact that you're almost promised mayhem.
Yes.
Yes.
That means we probably have the same book.
Probably. Surprise.
Surprise.
Hey, it's good. See, this is why we do this. But I was going to say, I feel like weddings, you're almost guaranteed mayhem, and that definitely makes the book more entertaining.
Okay, I can see that. Valerie, what do you think?
Mayhem, that's interesting. I think they make good heroes or heroines because CCR readers love weddings. And if you've got a wedding planner, then you've got all the ins and outs of details, however many weddings might actually be on the page or not. There's a lot of talk about weddings, and I think that that's pretty appealing to our readers in general.
Okay. Narelle, what do you think?
Well, I agree with everybody else so far. We're on a unity ticket today, aren't we? Yes, but weddings are just fun, but there's also so much that can go wrong, and there's lots of people that are involved. So you get all the family dynamics, and there's just a whole lot of heightened drama that can happen. And the wedding planner has to fix everything that goes wrong, and has the pressure and stress of making sure the wedding works because they want to be successful in their job. They have sort of a personal stake in it. And I think that's what makes it fun, is that the wedding planner is trying to hold everything together and not have a disaster and not sort of lose their business, if that makes sense as well.
Yeah.
Or their mind.
Yeah, any of those things.
Yeah, and they're also tend to be like empathetic and caring people, because they're invested in this couple to have a beautiful wedding, the wedding of their dreams, etc., etc. So they tend to be appealing characters by definition, I think, for that reason too. I mean, who wouldn't want a wedding planner? I certainly didn't have one, but the whole idea of it's very nice.
Yeah. Cool. I don't have anything additional to add. I agree. I agree with all of those reasons. Absolutely. How much wedding has to be in a book when the main character is a wedding planner? Toni, how much wedding do you need to see?
I need a lot. Going back to Valerie's comment, as a reader, I want to see all the weddings, as many as possible, including their own, hopefully, in an epilogue, hint, hint to anyone thinking of doing wedding planners in the future.
Okay. Valerie?
Yeah, weddings on every page, hey?
Yeah.
That's not non-stop weddings.
That sounds terrible.
I was watching you while I said that. I
do not want to read that book.
Weddings on the page.
Narelle, what about you? What do you think?
I think it depends on the story. So I think it's often fun when it follows one wedding, if that makes sense. So you start at the beginning where the wedding planner meets the couple and then goes through the steps of doing all the different things in planning a wedding, rather than having a series of weddings that you go to. Although I did love 4 weddings and a funeral. So I'm definitely a fan of weddings. Sure. But it really does depend on the story. And I think the story for me will dictate how much wedding is in it. But if they're going to spend all this time planning a wedding for a particular couple, I want to see the outcome on the day and what actually happens, or I'd be very disappointed.
See, I would much rather see all cake tastings. I'm there for it. Engagement portraits. Yes. Dress shopping. Yes, definitely. All of those things, finding venues, touring venues, looking at flower girl dresses, picking out flowers. I want to see all of that stuff. The actual wedding, you can skip that as far as I'm concerned. Maybe like a highlight shot from the reception and then we're good. I want to see the planning part. I don't actually want to sit through, the procession for 2 pages, cute antic of flower girl who misbehaves because they always do. The ring bearer drops the ring. The bridesmaids are fighting with the groomsmen so that, no, I don't want any of that. Just not me. So.
But I think you would only put that on the page if it was actually meaningful. Like it's like it's like you transition things. You don't want to go through the ins and outs of someone having a romantic dinner. You don't want to know exactly what they ate every menu. You don't want to hear about every bite, et cetera, et cetera. So I really think if the author can spotlight the unique things about this wedding that make it different and interesting, then you miss all the boring stuff that you've been mentioning as well.
Well, particularly if the main character is the wedding planner and this isn't their wedding, unless they're actively doing something or putting out a problem or something like that, like, why do I want to read about sub character 2 and 3's wedding? I don't.
Unless it's the characters from the previous book in the series.
Yes.
I mean, I still don't, but other people do.
But then it's a little more interesting for the readers, the fans of that series.
Yeah,
that's just random stranger A and stranger B.
Yeah.
And that's as long as you've read the previous book. So if you haven't read the previous book, you feel like the stranger in the corner of the wedding who doesn't belong there.
Right.
Like you've walked off the street into a church and suddenly these people are getting married. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So I think that can be tricky with series if the readers haven't read the previous book, if you spotlight the previous couples too much. But that's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I think you and I, Narelle, are in the minority when it comes to that, though readers I see frequently talking about how they want to see everybody's weddings, and you don't get that from me. Sorry, readers, I love you, but I don't want to read it, so I don't want to write it.
I'll read it if it's interesting. I mean, I will read it if it's interesting. That's the whole point. So as long as, everything that's on stage in a book should be interesting, unique. It should do work for the story, if that makes sense. So as long as it's working for the story and moving the story forward, I don't want to pause in the book because we've got to look at all this detail of something. It's like if you went to a football game in a book and you suddenly pause the action because you've got to see play by play what's going on the field.
Yes.
And that's kind of the way I look at it, that if you've got someone on the field who in a football game that breaks their neck, or there's some massive drama, or a streaker running across the field, although you never wouldn't hear about that in CCR, but you know what I mean? If there's something weird or different, like the grand gesture where someone's proposing on the big screen, I mean, that's the kind of stuff you would put on the page, unless you're writing a sports fiction book that happens to have romance in it. So it's the same sort of principle. I do love weddings, but I do want to make sure that all those details actually matter for the story. And then I'm there.
Cool. All right. So is there anything you absolutely have to see when the wedding planner is a main character, or on the flip side of that, anything you absolutely don't want to see? Toni? Deal breakers?
I absolutely want to see the wedding planner's plans get disrupted. Especially if they're the type A personality, like they've been planning since, their first planner, whatever the case may be. Like, I want their life disrupted so badly.
Mean. I love it.
That's what pulls out the emotion in the story. Like, that's what invests you, because you're like, but there's a reason why they're type A. Like, you're going to find out what their backstory is, and you're like, oh, I'm so sympathetic to you. But as far as what I like, deal breakers, I'm not sure that I have any. I'm not one person who watches like all aspects of wedding on TV. So. Okay.
All right, Valerie?
I guess there's kind of two angles, because you've got the wedding planner could fall in love with one of the people that's supposedly getting married, that can be pretty darn awkward. And then what I would not want to see is the story moving too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of, it's kind of like a runaway or jilted bride thing there too. It's just like,
Sure.
you don't want to just like next week declare your love for somebody else.
Yeah.
Give it 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's all good. But yeah, so it depends on if it's the if they're falling in love with, you know, the brother or the best man or whatever, then that's a little bit different. So there's a couple of different angles that the story could take, and yep.
Okay. Narelle?
Well, I'm like Toni. I want to see the wedding planner under pressure and really put through their paces in the story. And I want to also see that connected to the hero or the heroine who's the potential future match for the wedding planner. Then to see how all this mayhem and drama actually impacts them and their sort of growing relationship as well. So I want those sort of wedding planning aspects where everything goes wrong to actually be meaningful, and not just, oh, that's nice to have on the page. So that's probably the thing that I want to see. And I don't want to see a whole lot of wedding planning stuff that isn't important to the story. Like, I actually want it to be connected in. And that's what makes me happy with wedding planning stories.
Sounds like a really tough sell. I'm trying to think if any of mine have that would satisfy Narelle, and I don't think so. I don't want to see, I kind of already covered it, too much of the actual wedding. I prefer the wedding planning parts. If this is a wedding planner, like if your main character is a minister, then, you know, okay, then you can have weddings in there if there's a reason for it. But I would rather see the before and then like little snippets of the actual ceremony if you have to, or the reception. Also because I think it's more reasonable, I guess, to have all the things go wrong, because I agree, that's the fun part, right, is when things go wrong. You don't want that to happen in the ceremony. Like that's not when that should be happening. That should be happening during the planning and at the reception. But the ceremony is, to me, like meaningful enough and important enough that I feel like it shouldn't be slapstick comedy of errors rom-com in the ceremony, like, because this is a holy union being formed in the sight of God and man, and so there should be some reverence there, rather than, you know, haha, oh, they tripped and, you know, threw the bouquet too early and, you know, whatever happened, hijinks and mayhem in the ceremony.
So that means you hated Rowan Atkinson's character in 4 Weddings and a Funeral when he's doing the wedding ceremonies and bumbling his way through.
Yes. Generally speaking, Rowan Atkinson is not someone who I seek out to watch in any form. So Mr. Bean is not my speed of humor. So yeah. All right. Other generic thoughts before we jump into books, or are we ready? Are we ready?
We're ready.
Awesome.
You're
all right.
ready.
So we're going to share our books. Toni, hit us with your first one.
So this was really hard. I was like, ooh, weddings, yay. And then I was like, wait, when's the last time I've read a wedding planner book? So all of mine, I feel like, are older. My first one is Love, Lace, and Minor Alterations by V. Joy Palmer.
Okay.
I liked it, number one, because wedding dress on the cover, sold. Then two, the heroine, she's a bridal consultant, which means she's guaranteed to have lots of drama as the bridal consultant. And I just liked her style of writing. If I remember correctly, it was first person as well, which I feel like even puts you more in the head of the characters. And you're like, oh, so much drama. Oh, so much fun.
Excellent.
So that's my first choice.
Okay. I haven't even heard of that. I don't think. So that's exciting. I will look for that one. This was a hard one. This was hard to find books. Valerie, what's your first?
Shall I leave it for you, Narelle?
No, you go first, and I'll add on if we've picked the same book.
I'll go with my second pick first and give you a shot at this. All I've Waited For by Lindsay Harrell was my first or second pick, you'll never know. It's part of the Walker Beach series. And Ashley is working for a wedding planner who is an older man who is about to hand off his business, possibly to her or possibly to his niece, if I recall correctly, who has never really shown an interest in it. So, I mean, Ashley's like, please, this is my dream. I want to do this. And so the owner of the company says, okay, the next wedding is yours. We'll see how you do. We'll see if you've got what it takes. And then the next person to walk through the door is her high school sweetheart, who, when he left town, she kind of thought he was going to come back for her, and he never did. And now she's like, he's here, it's my dream. And then he brings in his fiance. Yeah, Toni, exactly, just like that. Oh dear. So but her whole future as a wedding planner is at stake with the next wedding that comes through the door. And so she's working on that one. So that's kind of a little on the awkward side. It's also, and then she kind of discovers that he's not really in love with his fiance. So she doesn't know whether that's good or bad, because she's kind of creeped out by it, because he shouldn't marry her if he doesn't love her. But then he's still attracted to her, and she's like, but you're engaged to her. And so there's all sorts of awkwardness, and it does all make sense in the end. But yeah, so there's definitely awkwardness in that one. If that's one of the hallmarks of a good wedding planner story, you've got it in spades in that one.
Now, the Walker Beach books are sweet, right? There's no faith thread to those. Is there?
It's been a few months since I read them, and I thought that I had focused back then on that. I think that there are, I would call them more of a Christian light.
Okay.
They definitely go to church and pray.
Okay.
But I cannot just like confidently say right here, oh yeah, there's a definite faith journey in that book. I don't remember for sure.
No worries.
January or so.
Yeah, I was just idly curious. I read
a year ago
the first one, I think, in the series, and I keep meaning to get back to them, but there's time. There's a time thing. So.
There is, and there's so many books, and more every minute, and it's so hard to pick the next read.
Yep. Narelle.
Okay, well, I will go with the one I think Valerie has also chosen, which is A Heart Redirected by Elizabeth Maddrey. Did I pick it? Now and we've already talked about this one before in our Runaway Bride and Jilted Bride episode. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and look for it, because we talk about this one there. And the wedding planner in this book, Sean, is a guy. So that's a unique take on it as well. And what happens is Paul Larissa it's his Peacock Hill. So we're booked for at Peacock Hill, and she's waiting at Peacock Hill for her fiance of like 18 months or something. They've been together for like 4 years to turn up for the wedding, and he'd been very uninvolved with organizing things. So I think they'd had 14 months of wedding planning, where it's basically Larissa has been with Sean doing stuff, and they knew each other from church from Richmond, if I'm remembering correctly. And so they're kind of acquaintances, friends, and the groom's been absent. And then, of course, the wedding ceremony happens, and he makes a phone call to the wedding planner to say, oh, I'm not coming. He's a real class act, this guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
At least you know that you're not rooting for him.
No.
Oh, no. Gosh. And the worst thing he did, in my opinion, is that Larissa had a cat named Sassy, and he made her give her cat away. I mean, who does that? Like, unless he had a really bad allergy, maybe I could forgive that. But a character who makes their future spouse give away a pet is just awful. Yeah. So, but Paul Larissa
and then leaves her at the altar. I mean,
right, right, and then doesn't even stick around.
And she doesn't even have a cat. It's terrible.
Yeah. and then leaves her homeless because she's given notice. And he takes all the linen and all the presents that are really good and takes them to his house. And he has the audacity to go on the cruise for the honeymoon himself and puts photos up on social media with all these women. It's just, he's just awful. So immediately we're thinking she's really dodged a bullet by not marrying this guy. And so she ends up effectively homeless. And there's an opportunity for her to go and stay at Peacock Hill while she's trying to transition to find a new apartment, which isn't easy to do at short notice. And then, of course, Sean is planning the wedding of Anna and Duncan, who were in, which book was it? Thinking, I've got it written down, A Heart Reclaimed, book 2 in the series. So, and they've only given Sean 2 weeks to plan their wedding. So you can imagine there's a lot of fun that goes into doing a very fast wedding very quickly at Peacock Hill. So it's a really good story. And Sean's just adorable. Like, I think he's just a really good hero, and he has feelings for her, but he doesn't push it either. Like, he realizes that she needs time to unpack a whole lot of stuff before anything can happen. So I highly recommend this one, particularly if you want to see a guy who's a wedding planner.
I
I can't
think
believe I forgot that one.
I think one of the funnest things about that one too is the tagline, which is something like that he messed up on rule number 1: don't fall in love with the bride.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oops.
Oops. Poor Sean. But it works out, so it's all good. Cool. My first one is The Planner by Jess Mastorakos. And it is Sweet, not CCR. But this is her most recent series, The Brides of Beaufort, South Carolina. And it is a brother's best friend romance, which makes it fun. Plus, you've got sort of swoony Marine, and he's got this background of childhood abuse, which makes him question his ability to have any sort of long-lasting relationship. So that's kind of fun because he's like wounded and hurting. And they are,
Do you
she has
hear
a,
yourself? It's
What?
kind of fun because he's wounded and hurting.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's so true.
Authors are terrible people, so are readers, but you know, that's okay. No, maybe we all need therapy. I don't know, but she runs a bed and breakfast / wedding venue. So she does help with the planning for the venue, like she runs the wedding venue. So I figured it counted. And she just, this one I loved because for all that she is a wedding planner and it's part of the story, it matters, but it's not like overwhelmed with wedding, which suits me. Lovely. So it was super fun. And if you've been reading that series, I think it's book 2, which is just a great little next installment. And I say little, it reads fast, but I think she told me it's like 80,000 words. So it's not short. It just reads fast because it's good. So
I binged Jess's previous series like over a few weeks, just like eating, I don't know.
They read fast. Yeah, it's like a sleeve of Oreos before you know what happened. It's like, where'd the package go? Yeah, that's why we don't buy Oreos in this family. All right, book 2, Toni.
I totally would have picked Jess if I knew that was an option.
Sorry.
That's okay. So I went way back and I picked for my next one, Always the Baker, Never the Bride by Sandra D. Bricker.
I love that series.
Yeah, I was going to reread it, but I ran out of time. So I'm really glad that you've picked it.
Yeah, the whole entire series I think was great. But I picked the Baker because number one, cakes, right?
Yeah.
And the second thing is she's a diabetic. Yeah. The Baker Emery. And I love the fact that you have a diabetic baker.
Yeah.
Yes. Like your brain can't even wrap around it. So I liked how they addressed it. I liked showing how she baked despite having that kind of disease. And of course, I thought the hero was super sweet. If I remember correctly, he was like super rich.
Yeah.
And so there was the class issue, which I think is always fun. So yeah, and those covers were cute too.
So
They were.
cute. Yeah. Those are some of the first, when I started getting serious about CCR, reading it, those are some of the first that I read. Those are old, but they're fabulous.
Sandra D.
Yeah.
Bricker.
Yeah.
She was a classic.
Definitely.
Yep. Cool. Valerie, number 2.
The next one I have on my list is A Wedding to Adore by Evangeline Kelly.
Is on
You're
my
kidding
list.
me. It's on my list too.
Oh, isn't it convenient that I'm going ahead of you today,
It
Narelle?
is.
But I let you talk about that stuff. So
That's okay. I'm next, so I can just add a few things at the end. It's all good. We're happy to share. We can share our books. We're grown ups.
So Brooklyn's passion is wedding planning, but this particular wedding is a nightmare because the parents of the bride are fighting tooth and nail and making life very difficult for the poor little bride, who thankfully has a rich older brother who's paying for her wedding and indulging her with all the things she wants that the parents are fighting about. So yes, the wedding planner falls in love with the big brother in this particular one. So Jared is, because of his parents' example, he's like, there is no way I'm ever getting married. If my little sister wants to get married, that's fine. I'll be here to pick up the pieces later, but not me, not ever. So, and then, fall in love with the wedding planner. No, that's just really not what he's going to do. But that one was sweet. He has a huge house on the beach. And so they're planning the wedding to be on the beach in front of the house. And so there's a lot of reasons for the wedding planner to interact with the big brother, whose name is Jarrett. Yeah, that was on your list too, Beth? I see you
And
nodding.
Narelle's. Narelle can go next.
I'll go next. Oh, it was such a fun story. And so he lives in Malibu. So this is all set in LA. So it's very LA. What I consider LA in a lot of ways as well, in terms of the way the characters are very image obsessed and stuff like that too. And I mean, you've got to empathize with Brooklyn. I mean, in the first chapter, she's been the apprentice or the intern working for this very well-known LA wedding planner, and something goes wrong and she fixes the problem like in a massive time crunch. And her boss has a nose out of joint because she didn't call her to tell her that there was a problem, and she fires her. I mean, it was just awful. It's like, seriously? But it was the best thing that ever happened to Brooklyn because she's got 2 friends. And if you read the rest of the series, the friends come into it as well. And the first wedding she lands is with Jarrett's sister. One of the things I really liked about this one is that it had a very strong faith element in it as well. If you're looking for Bible verses in a book, this one will satisfy you because there's a lot of that in there. And it also looked at the parent.
No, it's not preachy. Yeah.
No, it's not preachy, but it's relevant Bible verses, I should say. And his father's an alcoholic, and I think the way she handled the alcoholism and how that's really impacted not just Jarrett. So Jarrett's really been very much, I don't want to ever get married because I don't want to become like my parents. I don't want to make the same mistakes. I don't want to make everybody in my life miserable because I've got this vendetta with someone. And then his sister, who's the bride, she's just so people pleasing. She can't stand up to anybody. She has to keep the peace. And that is, I think, very typically a trait of children of alcoholics as well. So I thought from that sort of level, it was handled very well as, in terms of the psychological background for the characters and the emotions that come out in it. So, and he's commitment phobic, and that just causes a whole lot of issues, but it's a good one to read. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I will say Jenny, who is the sister, the bride, she drove me insane because I'm like, let's go buy you a spine as part of your wedding gift. Let's go find you a spine because
it's her father.
Howdy.
It's her father. She hadn't done the therapy. That is so typical of someone who's been raised in that type of family background.
Yeah.
Like I was just there empathizing for her. I just wanted to give her a hug. I could just see that she's just had so much. Yeah.
I'll shake her and then you can hug her.
I'll hug her. She needed a hug. Oh, well, if anyone's read this book, please let us know in the comments whether Jenny needs to be shaken or hugged.
Both. She needs both. But it was
Sure.
it is a fun read. I don't have anything more to add to that. Do you want to pick another one, Narelle, or do you want to?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. I will, since we took that one off my list, I'll go down further. That's okay. I don't think we've mentioned Longing for Lily by Tara Grace Ericson multiple times on the podcast. But Lily is a wedding planner. She has Storybook Barn, I think is what it's called.
That sounds right.
On the Bloom farm where it's a wedding venue. And he is a wedding photographer. And so they have a past and but he's a well-desired photographer here at this venue, so they have to work together. So it's a great story. For me, I wish I'd known going into it. There's cancer as part of it right now. Like I'm in a headspace where cancer books are like a big nope for me. So, I feel like that's worth knowing ahead of time that there's a fairly significant cancer subplot. But it's fun and it's not super wedding-y as well, which I appreciated. There are two? I think maybe just 2 weddings.
I don't remember.
Or maybe just one.
Was on my auxiliary list, but I didn't go and look at the details.
So, but it's really good. It's a good book and we've discussed it a lot. But if you've been listening and you haven't yet read the Bloom Sisters books, here's yet another plug for Tara's Bloom Sisters, because they are fabulous. We probably do not have time for another go round unless someone has one they're just desperate to mention. Toni, do you have a desperate to get in there?
No, I don't.
No. Okay. All right, then we'll call it there. There are many others out there probably. So let us know your favorites in the comments that we didn't get to. Toni, remind everyone where they can find you and your books.
You can find me at tonishiloh.com, all my books, all my social media links.
Excellent. And I see your latest Love Inspired. When did that come out? I see it behind you.
No, you don't. It's someone else's book.
That's not yours? Oh, well, because yours has a dog on the cover.
It does.
Okay.
It's the same series.
Okay. But it came out. What?
No, it comes out June 28th.
June. Oh, we're not there yet. Okay. Almost there. Okay. Yay.
Almost.
That's exciting. So, look for that. It's Canine Companions. Is that the correct series name? Okay.
It is.
Excellent. And a firefighter, which I'm excited about because firefighters are hunky.
And we need to do an episode on firefighters.
We do. We should do
We
that.
really do.
Yes.
Agreed.
Toni's like, can I come?
Exactly. We'll have you back. We love you anytime. All right. So ToniShiloh.com to find Toni and her books. I totally hijacked your plug there, asking about the book behind you that I thought was yours. So my bad. Sorry.
All good.
Thank you everyone for joining us at Story Chats. Let us know wedding planner books that we missed that you love in the comments. We love to hear from you. And you can find information about the podcast at inspiromance.com/storychats. And if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And we will look forward to seeing you next week. In the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.